Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 16th. It's a good thing I was busy while the market was doing absolutely nothing. Pretty much remained right within this fill back in. Some people would have been looking at this as a following three methods where you come back, fill this in, and then you start your next move. Now, we do have a reset of our DOC for long-term, mid-term buyers, almost, but it's in what I call that no spark zone, where turnovers here usually are modest to weak, but that's okay. Even a modest to weak bounce still going to get you back towards the highs. The problem you've got is we've got no reset of orange coming back down, or even the steel. And so while the steel, is currently above cyan, it could cross below and create a little more weakness into these other ABMs. So easy enough. You've got ABM yellow. Let's just highlight what that number is, so that it's covered by price right now, 27.49 1/4. Below that, hey, out or short the market, and above, long. That's simple. You can even play any breaks below than the other levels, and you can do the same. At this particular point, we're looking at NASDAQ with very weak shakeout, but looking almost identical now to where the ES is as far as the ABM relationship goes, even though it's still much better off than the S&P is at this particular point. Euro is still holding up outside of the normalized range. Some of this is probably that internal battle on the trade issues and how that's going to shake out. Despite the rhetoric about tariffs and that, I just don't see, as much as you hear the hype, the administration going for tariffs, they're using it as a leveraging tool to force these guys to open up some markets, which that's ultimately what they want, is the ability to trade, but trade fairly, and you have to have leverage to do that, and you're not going to just say, oh, please be nice. That doesn't work. And of course, still, the flight into treasuries has got us into a positive shakeout, but no reset. It's going to be short-lived. So just keep that in mind. That's a suggestion that you're both going to see oil rise as well as gold. Even though it's been in the weakness, again, this one becomes another easy one. You got the green ABM. If we're looking at the ETF here, at least at 125. But again, just weakness, and we saw that continuing from the other day. No reset of the steel, so not expecting a whole lot from that at this particular point, which suggests that we've got inflation still under control, which I think is the antithesis of what people expect. It's going to be interesting to see how much hype on this whole idea that the economy has stopped based on the new GDP projections. We'll have to wait and see if that actually takes place. New lows for Bitcoin, though, during all of this. And even though that we still ended up, it's interesting to look at this. I always like to look when you see these steel. Is a good point to make. While that's equivalently the move from underneath, when you're looking at this, what you also want to be looking at is that 23% line, because no close above that is problematic from a bounce standpoint. And so even when we look at some of the others that have occurred, they happen with price moving over the 23, and those usually give you your best shot. And even this one, as much as it moved up, it still fought right back to the exact same level before finally climbing. So worth noting, we still haven't seen, the closest we had to a reset was right back over here. It didn't match what was going on, and that's why it was a bunch of muck going through there in between. So that was really kind of an interesting anomaly seeing that one. Of course, it's a 30-minute chart. We finally saw that the other day that we were able to get enough daily information to actually look at, which is always an interesting one when they start up a new security. But you can see this is the upper range from the other day, and all we did was peek it, and then from the low standpoint, they just scratched underneath it to test how many stops there were, and clearly not that much. We've done it again right back down here, so we're just testing this bottom range, and that was just to see how much volume they can get. And if it's just not there, then you're going to start to see a push back up to the upside. So it's just a question now of are there any new funds this late in the month that want to start driving it as a precursor towards the end of month trade, and That's what we look for. This is one of the smaller range days, but still was fairly decent when you look at the numbers. If we look at the 0%, you went from 27.45 all the way up there to the high at 27.65. So below what the general ATR is, but still plenty of movement, particularly with some of these signals for the shorts. Looked good, particularly when, and I like these, when I get to my 50%, I usually get a little cautious, but in this case, didn't get orange dipping below red, not at all, not until after we had made new lows. So I love it when that happens. It's a beautiful way to stick with a trade, particularly when you're looking for the specific zone level. So that was nice, and we can see now that we're just getting a ABM reset right here, coming off of what was a super short signal that immediately flipped down, and fairly decent, but this is kind of just a blah zone, which we usually get just a bunch of sideways. So I like to see when we get a nice significant dip either below or above, and you're able to take advantage of those in a clean way. Doesn't mean you can't trade them for the little scalp stuff in between, as long as you recognize the difference between what the market is presenting to you, and the DOC shows you that. Likewise with the shakeout, once you get back towards above that little rose color line here at -13, you know that you're moving towards more of an accumulation than not. So those are all the good things that are going on there, and not really that exciting at this particular point. So that's the long and the short of it. As always, though, trade well, and we will talk again later.